Michael Bay. Just saying that name triggers a part of my soul that I never knew existed. People on this website have been making a living shitting on this man since the dawn of time, and rightfully so. He's made a lot of crap.
Can you smell it?
Yeah, it smells like $40,000 a year.
But what no one can take away from this man is the fact that he knows how to make money. Even Transformers The Last Knight, the one that bombed so badly it killed the franchise for half a decade, still broke over $500 million worldwide. But after Bay's time with the Transformers franchise came to its aforementioned abrupt end, his career was completely up in the air. No one knew what the future would have in store for Bay or his films. And after releasing a Netflix original that no one saw, Bay set his sights on something new, an entirely original story and production. A gamble. One that could either revive his career and usher in a third golden age of Michael Bay filmmaking, or kill his career altogether, leaving it to burn in the breakdown lane of the 405 alongside the mangled carcass of Nazi Bumblebee. Both Jake Gyllenhaal set to star in this mystery project, that prospect of revival was becoming more and more likely. We'll get to the production history in a second, but for the moment, I want to talk about the actual movie first. Now, before seeing Ambulance, the only exposure I've had to Michael Bay's filmography is the consensus 2 worst Transformers films and the first hour of the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. I turned it off right after the Splinter fight, because even as an 8-year-old, I knew that shit was trash. So when I tell you that this movie is actually pretty good, you know I'm not bullshitting.
It is pretty unbelievable.
It's not believable at all.
At all.
First of all, while this is probably the least Michael Bay film he's ever made, if you're already not a fan of his style, you're not going to like this movie. In fact, it might be a little nauseating with all the drone shots, shaky cam, and Dutch angles. It's as though Bay discovered that drones existed for the first time during the production of this movie and had to make up for his lack of drone shots in all his previous movies. While a lesser man might complain about Bay's in-your-face and by all means obnoxious style of filmmaking, by today's standards, it's weirdly beautiful to experience. In an age where directors are forced to hold back, either due to studio interference or because they don't have the confidence to take risks, Bay's obnoxious style of filmmaking is weirdly a breath of fresh air in an overly corporatized film industry devoid of personality. Not to mention the practical stunts, where Bay's legitimate expertise is able to shine through. Man, don't you miss when movies had, like, sets and whatnot? Good times. Filming this movie consisted of 90 to 120 shots a day, which helped the production wrap after only 38 days. For comparison, most films are only able to get 20 to 30 shots a day. Bay is an absolute psychopath on set apparently, but like, in a good way.
The reason why I wanted to do this film was Michael Bay.
He's a man of the people. Bay doesn't have a trailer or a director's chair. He's right there in the thick of it with his guys. Say what you want, but he gets the most out of his crew. Jake Gyllenhaal even ended up shooting some of the scenes in this movie because it was so cramped in the ambulance. Apparently, Bay was also able to sweet-talk his way into having the police voluntarily close the freeway for one of his chases instead of having to pay the usual $400,000 cost for them to do so. Furthermore, the classic Michael Bay trope of all the characters acting like dicks to each other is not only actually really funny here,
There.
My right or your right?
His right, you fucking moron.
but it actually makes a lot of sense that they'd act this way, because every character in this movie is in a perpetual life or death scenario, and it is also used to develop characters. For example, when Danny calls one of the guys on his crew Mel Gibson, it shows how much he legitimately needs his brother by his side to function. I like the writing in general, to be honest. Even though the dialogue can be corny at times, it's always backed by the character's previous actions, so while it should take me out of the story, it doesn't. Like when Danny says,
Would you say that he's my pretend brother?
He's my real brother.
I 100% believe that he would say that because it's totally in character for him to do so. I like movies that take place over the course of a single day, where we just follow our characters during a pivotal 24 hours in their life. Because of this, we don't really waste time with backstories, and the exposition is kept to a minimum. Actions shape the characters, and the characters shape the story. For example, this cop pushed his partner to ask out a girl at the bank, which led to his partner being shot. So his questionable actions later in the story is grounded in his motivation of real-life guilt. So it's not entirely unbelievable for him to do these crazy things. We know Will cares about Danny because Will shoots a cop to protect him, and that action is what causes the rest of the story to unfold. Michael Bay really took a page out of Tarantino's book with this one.
Now, that's not a story. A story is something that constantly unfolds. I'm not talking about like this quick left turn or a quick right turn or a big surprise. I'm talking about it unfolds.
The character introductions are also all perfect. At first, I thought Will was going to be the main character, and he technically is. The movie begins with him, and he's literally the driving force of the plot, since he's the guy who drives the titular ambulance. Also, he makes the most important heat-of-the-moment decisions. The FBI guy has a very good introduction. The setting of couples therapy allows for comedy. Him being a dick to the therapist also helps to characterize him as a no-nonsense FBI agent, dead set on shipping Jake Gyllenhaal to Guantanamo Bay. The USC LAPD Special Forces dude was whatever. He's not a very compelling guy, but that doesn't mean he's not memorable.
I'll throw in a dodgy dog. What do you say? This asshole.
Danny's introduction is solid as well. From this one shot, we get all we need to know about this absolute crackhead. It also doesn't hurt that Jake Gyllenhaal is losing his mind in this role. He's just having so much fun playing this absolute lunatic, and that energy absolutely shows through. But speaking of characters, I haven't even mentioned my undisputed favorite aspect of this movie. This is gonna sound like I'm joking, but here it goes. The Michael Bay Ambulance movie has one of the best written female lead characters I've seen in a movie ever.
Oh, stop booing! There's nothing wrong with it!
Cameron is the EMT, and this is her movie. She's the real main character. She has the most tangible arc. She is a STEM major who learns the concept of empathy. Real groundbreaking stuff. Her introduction is absolutely perfect. No flaws whatsoever. There's no exposition. We're just shown everything that we need to know about her. She's the best EMT in Los Angeles, but she could not give less of a fuck about the people whose lives she's saving. However, after Will accidentally shoots a cop in the heat of the moment, Cam's ambulance responds to the call and picks up the injured cop before getting hijacked by Will and Danny, who take her hostage in an attempt to escape the police. Even as a literal hostage, Cam is by no means a damsel in distress. Even with an AR pointed at her head, she still takes every opportunity to talk shit to her captors. She is the only one keeping the injured cop alive, even successfully performing a notoriously difficult surgery on him that she was in no way qualified for, in the back of a moving ambulance that was being shot at. Also, adding to the pressure, the anesthesia on the cop wears off during the surgery, so he wakes up and freaks the fuck out, understandably. This scene not only shows Bay's ability to stack every single element he possibly can into a sequence to maximize its tension and anticipation, but through these insane circumstances, we see who Cam really is, just how calm she is under pressure, because even though she does freak out a little, she still keeps her composure and saves the cop's life after all that. And keeping the cop alive ends up being the only reason the police don't just kill everyone on the spot. After the surgery, we learn a little bit more about Cam's backstory and why she likes to keep everything surface level. She basically hates herself too much to ever let herself be vulnerable. But throughout the film, we see the effects her kindness and energy has on people, most specifically Will. Not spoiling anything, but if her character weren't so strong, it would destroy the believability of some of Will's later actions in the film. After everything, at the end of the day, when she returns to the hospital to visit the girl she saved at the beginning of the movie, and when she held that little girl's hand and she started crying, I almost teared up a little bit too. But the movie's not perfect, so let's talk about that. Look, there was always going to be some stuff I disliked. This is still a Michael Bay movie. I really couldn't care less about Will's wife and baby. They're in like 2 scenes, and one of those scenes is a FaceTime call. I feel like the movie doesn't really pretend like they're important though until the end. There's some confusion and continuity errors, like how the cops initially didn't know Will was in on it, even though they had security footage of his face and were able to identify Danny with the exact same security footage. Again, if you despise Bay's style, you will not like this movie at all. It's almost hilarious how straight the premise is played, which usually wouldn't be a bad thing if it didn't already borrow so much from previous heist movies. So, you know how there's 2 types of revenge stories? One's written by people who think revenge is good, and those written by people who think revenge is bad? Similarly, there's 2 kinds of heist movies. One's written by people who think stealing is good, and one's written by people who think stealing is bad. And Ambulance follows the latter archetype to a T. In those movies, it's always the crew getting picked off one by one until it's the 2 main characters left. And between the 2, there's usually the kinder one who changes his ways and leaves his life of crime behind him. And there's the hot-headed one that doubles down, and at the end, the one that doubles down dies in a standoff, while the nicer one gets away and lives to tell the tale. However, I still appreciate the plot's simplicity. Furthermore, the ambulance plot device and impressive sequences is enough to differentiate it from most heist movies that share similar plot points. But notice I said most, not all, because this is the most important gross I have with Ambulance. It is a total ripoff of another heist movie. In fact, it rips off arguably the greatest heist movie of all time. And if you've paid attention so far, or you're familiar with this channel, you probably know what movie I'm talking about. Godzilla, King of the Monsters. No, I'm just kidding. It's The Town.
Well, excuse me.
Look, I'm not going to accuse Michael Bay or anyone involved in this movie's production with plagiarism. Firstly, sometimes ideas just bounce around in the industry, and sometimes 2 very similar films can release without anyone directly copying off the other. And second, I don't think Michael Bay needs to steal ideas. What people dislike about him is that he has too many ideas packed into his movies. He has a constant surplus of new concepts, and even though a lot of them are bad, he never needs to copy off someone else to make a movie. But all this to say, Ambulance is very blatantly just The Town, but shittier. It's the LA version of The Town, like damn near to the letter, down to the heist going wrong, everyone dying, and our main characters disguising themselves as paramedics in an attempt to escape. We have a pair of brothers bonded by found family, something stronger than blood. These brothers also fulfill the archetype of the previous heist movies I talked about. Then, the less rash brother forms a bond with a female hostage they take. Also, the two main characters are able to evade the police due to their knowledge of the city streets. And this entire time, there was an FBI agent tracking them down with a personal vendetta against the crew. The two brothers escape, only for the more problematic one to end up dying in a standoff with the police. And towards the end, the main character is responsible for killing some major organized crime higher-ups who they're implied to have known for a while. Finally, both movies are homages to the cities they take place in, although it's done a lot better in the town, and I'm not just saying that because I'm from Boston. Okay, maybe I am. But in Ambulance, the only plot relevance that the city of Los Angeles has is that Danny knows these streets like the back of his hand, and the cartel. But the town does this better with the North End chase and the presence of the Irish mob. A major theme in the town is how the city of Boston, but more specifically Charlestown, is losing its identity, represented by John Hamm's character, a federal agent, taking down this crew of Irish townies. However, in Ambulance, that ending shot being of LA just felt so forced. I sort of wish they just cut to black right after the shot of Cam walking out of the hospital. It kind of feels like LA being a focal point was just added in sort of for the movie to differentiate itself. And the movie's inability to differentiate itself is what killed it in the box office. Yeah, this supposed slam dunk ended up breaking off the rim and hitting an old lady in the stands. The film ended up grossing only $52 million against its $40 million budget. And if you know anything about how movie budgets work, you know that's no bueno. That's Spanish. And it means not good. Most movies need to make back 2.5 times their budget to make a profit, so while Ambulance technically made a $12 million profit, in actuality it probably lost the studio tens of millions. But before we talk about why it flopped, we should probably discuss the production history first.
I just wanted to get the gang together early in my tenure to say, yo.
Hey, remember when I said this was an original concept from Michael Bay to jumpstart his career?
I lied.
Yeah, almost all of that is false. First of all, Ambulance is a remake of a Danish film of the same name, so it wasn't even an original concept. Second, Michael Bay wasn't even involved with the movie originally. Bay was the first choice to direct the film, but when Ambulance was originally announced in 2015, Bay was at the peak of his career, and thus had many scheduling conflicts. So the studio chose someone else to direct, then a few years later fired that guy and got some other people, then a couple years later fired those people again, so the project was in limbo. During the COVID lockdowns in LA, my boy Michael was feeling a bit bored and lonely, since his plans to shoot his next film had been pushed back. Like the crackhead who lives in the dumpster outside my apartment building, Bay was absolutely fiending to shoot something. He remembered the Ambulance movie he'd heard of a few years back, and pitched it to Universal as a low-budget, character-driven plot in a claustrophobic setting. The studio heard the words low budget and Michael Bay, and immediately put the movie into production. But turns out that wouldn't matter, the shit bombed anyway.
No.
Oh my goodness, Valentine!
No.
Whoa, no!
No.
That is not the shot!
There's a lot to blame for the box office failure. First of all, it doesn't help that it released in 2022 alongside Sonic 2 and Everything Everywhere All at Once. But second, the marketing was absolutely piss poor. Go back and watch any of the trailers. While they do encapsulate the overall vibe of the movie, they don't even scratch the surface of the sheer level of intensity present throughout the runtime of the film. Also, I'm not sure Cam has any lines across the trailers that aren't some generic-ass action movie paramedic dialogue.
Does your wife know you're up, Eggs?
Good question.
Maybe the marketing budget was kept to a minimum, but in my opinion, the god-awful marketing is just a symptom of the film not appearing any different from any other summer blockbuster on the surface. This aspect of Ambulance, taking a tired genre and making something new of it, is what makes it such an enjoyable watch, but it's ultimately what led to its financial failure, because general audiences couldn't distinguish Ambulance from the sea of shitty summer blockbusters. That's why I think this movie bombed, because when looking at it on the surface, from its marketing and overall premise, it doesn't offer you anything you haven't seen before. It's only when you actually watch it are you able to see what it has to offer, which is a solid story, one exceptional character, along with one insane performance, and a good-ass time.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry that I brought you into this.
I just wanted things to be the way they were, the way they used to be, you know?
Yeah, smells like $40,000 a year.
You wanna get killed for her? She fucked us. We're not the bad guys. We're just the guys trying to get home.
I rode with you all this way. What's your next plan?
We gotta go.
What's the plan after
We gotta
that?
go.
What's the plan after
Stop!
that?
You're talking.
No,
We
it's
gotta go.
over, Danny. We don't get to walk off into the sunset, Danny. We fucked up. We fucked up. We fucked up. And I'm not fucking up again.
So go watch Ambulance and form your own opinion. Or don't, I'm not your dad. But that's about it. Have a good one, fellas.
An 18-wheeler spins out of control, and it's all like, brush! In this huge tanker full of dynamite, crawl, crawl!